Welcome to another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing, the live video broadcast series that features the powerful women from the shop floor to the C-suite who are changing the world through engineering and manufacturing. Today, I have Jade Crompton, who is a 3D product designer for Design by Jade. Hi, Jade. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really like to start every conversation off with a little background information about yourself. So can you explain, how you got involved with 3D design and some of the things that, got you interested in the field?
Yeah. So I'm a freelance product designer and content creator for Solidworks. A little background behind me. Before I was a product designer, I studied fine art in college. I experimented a bit with painting and sculpture, but soon realised that my interests were in design. I used my time at college and university to experiment with different materials and see what I enjoyed most. And it was during my bachelor's degree that I started to work with ceramics. I began mould making and slip casting pieces, and started to design pieces on the computer in 2D. But then soon came across Solidworks and I was like, what is this? The software was there for the engineering students to use, but I was really curious. So I began playing around, revolving profiles and trying to model pieces that I'd already made in clay. I'd used YouTube tutorials when I got stuck and just developed from there. So I'm entirely self-taught, or YouTube taught.
So with the SolidWorks platform, that was actually going to be my next question on how you got involved with SolidWorks.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you are also a part of with that platform is you're a SolidWorks Champion. So how did that whole relationship happen? Because, a lot of people who enter either engineering or manufacturing, I think the big misconception is you have to have a 4-year college degree, but you mentioned that you're self-taught. And you found the platform, by researching, and then you did a couple of YouTube tutorials. So when did the connection happen with the company to be a SolidWorks champion for them?
Well, I started doing different projects in university. So during my bachelor's degree, I created a layered vase collection. I actually have one of the models here. So I designed it on the computer first. I did it all these big revolve shapes and just assembled them, and
That's
then
really cool.
Split the model into layers, and then obviously laser cut it out of perspex and reassembled it, and then used this to create a mold. So that was one of the first projects where I discovered I could take something from SolidWorks and make a product from it. But it wasn't that project that got me noticed. It was during my master's degree. I started to 3D print models. So this model is a little vase that I did. And I made a blog alongside my degree just to sort of document everything that I was doing. And I think that's what started to capture people's attention. They were like, what is she doing? But I could create models in SolidWorks and prepare them for making molds. So I'd be able to test, how many parts the model would need to be split into to create the mold. I'd create, this is called a spare, which is something that you probably know for when you're casting something, you need extra space for the casting. And what else did I do with it? You'd be able to see from the difference. I'd be able to test out the shrinkage rates. So when you fire something in a kiln, it shrinks by a certain percentage depending on the type of clay that you use. So I'd be able to test that, and I'd be able to get basically the exact size model or piece that I wanted at the end. And I ended up creating a blog with Mike Fearon, basically talking about the benefits of SolidWorks and ceramics and how it can speed up production, make it more precise. So that was when the relationship first started. And from there, I got asked, would I be interested in creating some content, based on ceramics and other things that I've got involved with over the years, which most recently was toy design, which is a whole other subject. But yeah.
We'll get into some questions about the toy design too, but the pieces that you just showed, the two vases that you were showing side by side, those are actually made out of clay.
So the first one, this one is 3D printed.
Oh, okay.
It's probably hard to see. My camera's not the best, but it's a 3D printed piece. That this isn't the one that I would actually make the mold from. To prepare it, I had to like fill it and spray it with a clear lacquer just to seal it. And then this is the slip cast version. So it's like the proper ceramic piece that I'm left with once I've cast it.
That is super cool. Yeah. So when you were going through, your educational journey in getting your master's, was 3D printing a course that you were taking during that time, or is that something that you self-taught yourself as well?
Yeah, the 3D printing was self-taught as well, but we had a digital design course within design, but it was more 2D graphics. But there's like I said, the software was there for engineering, but I sort of like wandered into the workshop and was like, can I use your 3D printer? I was using the laser cutter, and then I think the other tutors started to see the benefit and actually asked me if I could be a tutor like during my master's. So I started to help other students do the same thing, interconnect other design subjects such as metal, textiles, and ceramics with digital design, just to see the benefits of it.
That's really cool. So as you became like a teaching assistant, what were some of the things that you were creating at that time? Because you said that you, in a previous conversation that we had before this one, you mentioned creating tutorials for things that you were doing within SolidWorks. So can you kind of describe that process and explain what some of the tutorials were? Like what were the things that you were teaching? Was it just based on the whole platform as a whole, or were you, breaking it down on specific topics?
So a lot of my tutorials, I didn't really start creating tutorials until after my degree. But a lot of the tutorials that I do now, I've sort of gone back into projects that I did during my degree, such as my ceramics, just to show people how I created the pieces. But the tutorials I create now are probably based around like more towards students, and other designers probably find it more useful to use. But I look at specific features, so I try and find a subject that is quite interesting, quite different or fun to create, and then feature like the circular pattern or the loft tool. And I think it's just, I like to think of a topic that's going to be interesting, but also, showcase something that they may not have tried before, or just a fun way of learning a new tool, basically, in SolidWorks. Yeah.
So how did you get introduced then to the toy design journey, part of your journey?
It's just me. I like to play around with all different things. I think I've never been like focused on one thing, apart from once I found SolidWorks. I was like, this is my thing, and I can apply it to so many different things. But I just found the job application. I was like, oh, toy design, that sounds fun. I didn't even know that was a job. Was that a real job? But yes, I've worked for a couple of companies in the UK, like as a senior product designer, but also freelance, and specifically for wooden toys. So that has sort of influenced a lot of my tutorials, because I think it's, again, a fun topic for people to learn things in SolidWorks. A lot of the tutorials I watched when I was in university were very engineered based, were not really like product design. And I didn't really find them as interesting to learn from. I mean, I got the gist of what they were teaching me, but I think if there'd been more fun tutorials when I was learning, I might be more interested.
One of the things that you mentioned too was you had an amazing opportunity. Like, I think it's amazing, for doing some industrial design, type leadership for the hackathon, a certain hackathon. Can you explain that experience and what the hackathon was and what was all involved? Like, how did you get involved with that specific situation?
Well, I know Sean O'Neill, you probably know him as well. He knows that I've worked with a lot of different materials within my career. So we actually brought up the subject about the hackathon, which was to create a prosthetic hand. They already had a design, but they found it quite robotic looking and it needed improvement. You know, with all the technologies that we have now, they knew it could be so much better. So they had, I can't remember how many teams, I think there may be 4 or 5 teams. And we all had all different people from all different industries, like an engineer, mechanical, industrial, and we all had to basically redesign the hand for the user, make it more realistic, and that was where I came in. So a lot of the stuff that I did was rendering, looking at materials that we would use, what would make it more realistic. Basically looking at different skin colors. Could we personalize it to make the user more happy? It was such a fun project to be a part of. You know, I didn't think I'd be creating something like that, be involved in something like that, but it was really good. I think my role in it was to sort of be on the back of the engineers and say, yeah, it works, but it doesn't look great. They keep coming up with mechanisms and I'd be like, yeah, it works really well, but it doesn't look very realistic. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's an interesting point too, because I feel like a lot of people on the outside of engineering and manufacturing, they don't really understand the amount of work that goes into creating some of these designs. For instance, most people have some sort of smart device, like an iPhone or an Android, and there's a lot of complex components in the phones that we're using on a regular basis. And the thing is if you don't, you can design a sleek looking design all day long, but if you don't take in consideration the type of materials that need to be to make, the electronic parts work appropriately, it's taking all of those components and jamming them into such thin, sleek designs. And sometimes that process isn't as easy as people would like to think. They take that for granted.
You've got to think about material costs. When we were designing it, we had to think about if parts would need replacing. How easy is it to replace a part? The materials had to be robust enough. It's a hand, so using it every day. So water resistance, durability. Yeah. There's all different things that we had to take into consideration. So it's like, for me, this is why I love product design so much. It's making sure that something looks good, but also works just as well. It's like really important to me when I'm designing.
Absolutely. How, in your opinion, with that whole experience designing the prosthetic hand, how did Solidworks make that process, easier or even possible? Because I think people outside of the SolidWorks world might not understand just how much the tool helps in terms of design and engineering.
Yeah, well, we use the platform throughout the whole project. That's basically where we kept all of our files. We modeled in XDesign, and we would be like, we'd message through it and say, look, we've made these changes, and then people would be able to just jump on, change the design, and it would tell you what has been changed, when it's been changed, who by. It was a really, really important tool just to be able to use, especially when you've got files. You can just pop them on there and say, look at this. We did reference files, ideas. They even have like a progress bar, to sort of see where you're up to. You could put your deadlines, all that. It was just, invaluable for working, especially across different countries, across the world. I think our group had, I think we were in 5 different countries. It was like the most diverse group. It was, So we were working on all different times. But that was just, really useful.
I think that's amazing too for anyone that's listening in to really understand that with all these advancements in technology, we're able to create designs in a collaborative way with people we're not sitting right next to. Like, we can design something that's functional and very useful with people across the world from one another, and it can be a successful process. And I think that's one of the best ways to really be successful in engineering and manufacturing. And that's a great way to diversify it as well too, because right now in a lot of areas, not just the United States, there is this need for more manufacturing people or engineering people, and doing it virtually, especially with the pandemic, it changing everything for us. It's good to know that we have these technologies to allow us to still build and create things together. And
it's not stopping us. It's been really good. Yeah.
So from a design perspective, one of the things that I really am trying to do is just encourage younger generations to join engineering and manufacturing, specifically younger women. And I just wanted to know if you had any advice for anyone out there thinking about doing something in design. You mentioned before that, engineering was not something you were really interested in. Like, it kind of put you off.
I didn't even know it was like in my brain. I didn't think I was capable of it. I think it was just, experimenting is like the best way. Yeah.
Well, and that's like with me, I hate math. It's not anything that I enjoy doing, and I try to avoid it as much as possible. And if we're out to eat and we have to figure out the tip, if my husband is not with me, I use the calculator on my phone. Otherwise, I make him figure out, how much of a tip we need to provide our waiter. But to anyone that might be hesitant to, pursue something in design or engineering, what sort of advice would you give them to kind of encourage them to go for it?
I think people need to know that there's just so many different roles and different avenues that you can go down with these roles, with these different things. That I was told when I was at school that I was terrible at maths, and I think it was because of the way I was being taught. So practically, once I got into doing design and seeing where all these different, ways of working out things with numbers, angles, and all this sort of stuff, actually using it in a practical way, I could see the benefit of the subjects that I did at school. But I think my advice would be just to experiment as much as you can. Try all different things before you think, no, I can't do that, because you can do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Jade, it's been such a pleasure having you on today. I really want to say thank you for taking the time, because, speaking of virtual opportunities, I'm here in the United States and you're in the UK. So I know there's quite a significant time difference, and you're also a new mom. So I really appreciate you making time through your day and
it's been really good.
Explaining everything that you do. If people want to learn more about yourself and look at some of the things that you're creating, where can they go to do that? Do you have a website for us?
I do have a website. It's Designed by Jade. So it's www.designedbyjade.co.uk, or you can find all my links on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram as well, but all my information is normally on LinkedIn. You can email me if you have any questions as well. So
excellent. Well, thank you, Jade, and thank you to everyone who joined us for today's episode. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.